The five skandhas or samskaras are cosmic archetypes, or you can think of them as templates for conscious perception and templates for the ego. Each one is responsible for filtering consciousness into a specific range of frequencies, a bandwidth, in order to give rise to specific types of perception, like thoughts, emotions, physical feelings, and so on. So they're the constant structure of the mind being so fundamental, wherein the ego can develop and evolve. Now, as for the traits of these samskaras, I'll start by explaining vijnana. Vijnana means consciousness or discernment, so it represents the faculty of the mind that registers and distinguishes sensory data. In the Buddhist framework of the five skandhas, it's the fifth aggregate that functions as the base of awareness. So it allows the registration of colors and shapes and other sensory inputs to occur before they're interpreted by the other aggregates. And while it acts as the primary observer, it doesn't initially recognize specific details or judge them as pleasant or unpleasant, because those roles belong to the skandhas of perception and feeling. Now, within the Yogacara, or mind-only school of thought, vijnana is expanded into a more complex system of 8 distinct consciousnesses, which I will cover in another talk. The next aggregate is samskara. These are mental formations, volitional energies, intuition, which is synonymous for willpower, as a side note, volition, impulse, and all-accomplishing perception. Then there is rupa, which relates to form or matter. It's known to be responsible for conceptual form or mirror-like perception. And then there's vedana, responsible for sensation. And it's not an it is an equilibrating perception, not necessarily emotions. Then we have samnya, which is evaluative discrimination, cognitive thinking, or I could say cognition or thinking, and a discriminating perception. So that's a summary. Now let's get into these samskaras in more detail here. As for rupa, the form or matter one, in its broadest sense, form is spoken of in terms of causal and resultant forms. Causal forms are the elements of earth, water, fire, and air. So causal forms are the elements, and then the resultant forms, which are made of these elements, said to include the 5 sense faculties and their objects, as well as a slightly more problematic category called imperceptible forms, which will not develop here because it's a subtle and sophisticated concept. These sense faculties are not the ordinary sense organs, our eyes or ears and so on, but subtle forms within the sense organs, and of course in the mind as well. They have particular shapes which are described very precisely in the Abhidhamma literature. Now, the first of the sense objects is visual form, which means the various colors and shapes that appear to our eyes. So broadly speaking, colors may be divided into the primary colors, which according to the Abhidhamma are white, red, yellow, and blue, and then the secondary colors. They may be pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Sounds, the objects of the ears, may occur naturally or be man-made, or they may be a combination of both, like a person who beats a drum. A lot of sounds are just meaningless noise. Some impart meaning. In the latter case, they might be a vehicle for ordinary notions or else the sublime, a liberating message of the Dharma. As with sights, sounds, and, or I should say, just similar to sights, sounds can be pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Then we have smells or odors. These can be natural or artificial, and once again, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Then there's taste, which is said to be of 6 kinds, roughly translated as sweet, sour, bitter, hot, astringent, and pungent. Then there's textures, or tactile sensations. These may be felt on the body's surface or in its interior. Interior textures include hunger and thirst, and the feelings that come with being ill or deeply relaxed or stressed. In this investigation, form means our physical bodies, and more generally, it's all that we can see and hear and smell and taste and touch, and also the subtle faculties that do the seeing and hearing and smelling and tasting and touching. Now, these subtle faculties that can do this, perceive this way, but actually, why don't I just go on to the next samskara, because that has a bit of a rabbit hole in itself. So samskara, the samskara that is called samskara, which is responsible for feelings or sensations, it can also be called the skandha of feelings. And it doesn't necessarily mean emotional feeling, though. It refers to the general ability to sense things, right? So it's just general sensation, as far as I know. These are said to be the painful, the pleasant, and neutral sensations in the body, and the painful or pleasant, pleasant, unpleasant sensations of the mind. It's said that neutral sensations of the mind are not counted separately because they are indistinguishable from the neutral sensations of the body. We always experience sensations, mostly neutral ones, but also painful and pleasant. They can also be thought of as the sensations that occur based on sense impressions. A sense object like an incense stick would belong under the skandha of form, but when the sensation created, the sensation that is created emits, when we smell it, it belongs under this category as well. Rather, the category of sensation, not the category of form. So in this case, it would most likely be a pleasant sensation. But according to the teachings, feelings are important because they are the basis for attachment and aversion, which lie at the heart of many of the conflicts of all the beings in existence, and all the people on earth who are still living the ordinary sensual life. Now let's get into perceptions, the skandha of perceptions. Perception means the apprehension of a specific object as circumscribed and distinct from something else. On the conceptual level, this means the recognition of identities or names. And on the sensory level, it means the discernment of the 5 objects of sense. Technically, perception is defined as that which grasps or identifies characteristics. Perception could be non-conceptual in the case of the 5 physical sensations, or it can be conceptual as in the perception of thoughts and ideas. But in all these cases, perception can either be discerning or non-discerning. The 5 non-conceptual sense perceptions are regarded as discerning when they are operating normally and perceiving their proper objects, like the colors and shapes and sounds, smells, tastes, and textures. Mental perception is said to be discerning when it distinguishes identities or names. This happens when a mind recognizes an object and associates with its name. And furthermore, when the mind knows what it's referring to when the name is given. So perception is non-discerning when the sense organ in question is fully functional, but there's no object. This, for example, occurs in states of deep meditative absorption, and also when the mind is unable to identify with names of objects As for example, when you encounter something for the first time and you don't recognize this, and this is common, the common experience of children. Now, mental perception is also non-discerning when it doesn't know what is referred to when names are given. So, for example, when an unknown language is heard. But it should, however, be noted that non-discerning perception does not refer to mere privation of sensory stimulus, as, for example, when you're in a dark place with your eyes open or a soundproof room. In these cases, the senses do in fact have objects. Those are darkness and silence, respectively. So there are as many types of perception as there are phenomena. Perceptions are subjective experiences and are said to be important because they are the basis of for disagreement and controversy and confusion and pain. So this leads to conflict, especially amongst philosophers who have renounced worldly affairs but are still living very intellectually without intuition. Because without intuition, there's no way of truly knowing something or knowing the truth of something. It's just endless reasoning. Now, formations is the next category, and it is a bit complicated, but when we limit ourselves to mental formations, then it basically refers to thoughts and emotions, or what are technically referred to as the mental states. And although there are many possible mental states, the Abhidharma teaches about 51 in particular. They have particular importance. Sensation and perception are actually included in these 51, but are treated separately in the list of the 5 skandhas because they're especially noticeable and fundamental. There's no need to go into all 51 here, but we should know that they include the components necessary for any cognitive function to occur, for any cognition whatsoever, namely sensation, perception, intention. So this means the mind is directed towards a particular thing, and attention is one of them as well. And contact is another important one. Contact of an object, a functioning sense organ, and consciousness all come together. These are the 5 states which assist in discerning objects. There is interest, appreciation, mindfulness, concentration, and discernment. And we're talking about these on a subtle level. For example, we need a certain amount of concentration to focus on a particular object. There are also 5 states which assist in discerning objects. These are interest, appreciation, mindfulness, concentration, and discernment. These first 10 are called general mind states. Then there are the principal non-virtuous states of ignorance, desire, anger, pride, doubt, and harmful beliefs, as well as the secondary negative states like vindictiveness, spite, envy, deceit, stinginess, laziness, and forgetfulness. Here we also include the drowsiness and agitation we experience in meditation, as well as distraction. And finally, there are several variable states which could either be positive or negative, such as regret,